Welcome to today's webinar around AI, specifically around who owns the work when AI is involved. We'll go through introductions here. I'm going to kick it over to Thiago, my partner in crime here for today's webinar, and we'll do some introductions.
Awesome. I'm excited to be here and talking about this important topic. How are you today?
Good. Been top of mind, actually, for me to think about the topic here. It's come up in the news lately around some legal issues and the like, so it's very, very timely. A lot of clients are talking about this, there's a lot of colleagues, so I think it's great that we're doing this session to give some people some information.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into it.
All right.
I'm Thiago Ferreira. I am the founder and owner of Elevate AI Consulting, where I am both an AI educator and an automations consultant as well. And I've been hearing a lot lately about governance in general at all of my different clients. And it's just finally becoming more of a topic of conversation as companies realize that it's an important issue that they need to actually address. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, totally. Travis McBurney. I am the founder of the McBurney Group. And I am a solutions provider, solutions builder and strategic advisor. So I like to build the things, I like to advise, consult, and Thiago and I have had to develop a friendship here through one of our AI communities, and thought it'd be a great chance for us to come together and share some really important information. So we're going to go through what we're going to cover today, and then I'm going to kick it over to Thiago to take us through our first section. So, okay. A lot of things we could talk about today. We're going to focus on 4 key areas. Why does AI create confusion? People are like, what does it mean? How is it different? And how it is different than or similar to how we actually work today with humans to humans or using electronic information. Talk about an accountability framework. Okay, how do we think about this? Who owns what? Who's ultimately responsible? You can't blame your AI system. I'll give you a hint about that one. You own it at the end of the day. We'll talk more about that. What does that really mean when you're giving something out to your customers or to agencies or whatever it might be? What are requirements? Like, what is mandatory? What really should you be thinking about having documented and understood, and what things you maybe don't, but are still good practices to do? And then finally, what are the documentation, the minimum standards you should be thinking about? So if someone comes a knocking and you've got clarity and actual proof of how you use AI in the work that you do, you're going to set yourself up for success. If you don't, maybe not so much. All right, so we're going to take it back.
Yeah, so let's just kind of set the basis here, right? Why does AI actually create confusion at work, and why is the topic of governance even a topic of conversation right now? And as we've all been witnesses to over the past few months, AI is really changing completely the way that everybody does work, regardless of the industry that you're in, regardless of the role that you're in. AI is most likely touching the work that you do on a daily basis, and in a different way than previous technologies have done. The internet also made us extremely more efficient, right? iPhones and cell phones in general, smartphones, have also made us really efficient. And that is what AI is doing as well, but in a much different way, right? Because AI is actually generating content and work and doing tasks for us, with us, and sometimes on our behalf. So that is really the big change that is happening here. AI is not just another tool that we're adding to the toolbox. It is truly changing the way that people perform their jobs and how content in general gets created, right? And it's important to keep this in mind because teams and most companies, at least most companies that I talk to, are already using AI, whether formally or informally. And in both cases, especially in the informal case, there are a lot of risks involved for company safety, for data protection. And so that is why these gaps in governance and policies need to be addressed and create a safe place and security and accountability practices for your company that maybe were not there in the past.
Yeah, you hit on something really important. I don't think sometimes people even know they're using AI, and they are, and they're exposing themselves potentially to risk for them, for the company that they work for. So again, very, very timely. Go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Yep, absolutely. So the old rules are breaking down, right? The traditional assumptions and the traditional way that we used to work is one person is writing the content, or maybe a team is writing the content, and then another person, usually their manager or an external agency that they may be working with, is reviewing that content, right? And the authorship equals accountability. That has always been the assumption at work. So you turn something into your manager. It is your manager's expectation that you have, in fact, created that work yourself. There was no other way to do it before, up until this point, right? And so the process there being very transparent, very clear who was in charge of reviewing, who is in charge of creating, and also who is accountable when something goes wrong. And the quality of the work usually being generated comes from the human expertise, right? Again, there was no other option before. Even with the invention of the internet, us as users still have to go and do the search, do the research, verify sources a lot of times, and ensure that we are using verified sources for everything that we're doing for work and for our personal lives. But AI changes all of that, right? The new reality with AI is that humans and AI are collaborating invisibly, and that makes authorship very ambiguous. And not just at work, right? We've seen across the nation and across the world so many different court cases right now arguing over copyright and authorship and who is actually the owner of works generated by AI, and that is the same at work, right? And so authorship becomes kind of ambiguous, process opacity is the default, and quality depends on verification, right? We have to actually verify. We cannot just trust that these AI systems are giving you the best or most verifiable information. So this is not a theoretical shift. It's happening right now across all organizations, and it's creating real risks and confusions about who's responsible for what. And actually, I attended a masterclass earlier today about a similar topic, and just how people are using AI at work in general. And it really made me think, right? Because what the speaker was saying is how much people are actually hiding what the AI that they're using. So at a lot of companies, right, it is still considered a little bit of a taboo. Some people who may be a little bit more old-fashioned when it comes to technology also look at using AI to do your work as cheating in a way. And employees realize, right, that if they're given 3 days worth of work that they then complete in 30 minutes using AI, that they're just going to get more work, right? If they actually let their managers know that they completed it in 30 minutes. So workers are just completely hiding their use of AI because they don't want to be seen as cheaters, because they don't want to get extra work. And sometimes they may be using tools that are not even sanctioned by the company, right? So it's a really vicious cycle here that is happening across companies. And what is happening is lack of safety and a lot of fear for employees. And so if you can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, just a quick point on that too. A lot of it is around AI literacy, like what should you do, what can't you do? And I think, again, a lot of companies are still trying to figure that out and give good policy around what's acceptable and what's not. Because if you don't know, you may be making the rules and you may be causing harm at the end of the day.
Like 100%, right? And that is one of many problems that emerge. I've listed out 3 of them here that I believe are the most prominent ones, but they're definitely not the only ones, right? So as we were just mentioning, fear and paralysis overall. So teams avoiding AI entirely because rules are unclear, and therefore missing opportunities, not just for efficiency and innovation, but also for self-improvement and upskilling as well. We know that competitors don't stand still, right? So they are moving forward with their AI efforts and maybe leaving your team behind, right? The second big problem that we see is just inconsistent quality, and I'm sure anyone watching this can relate to this, just as AI users, right? Without clear standards, Some teams over-rely on AI outputs, and those outputs can be very inconsistent, right? We've all seen sometimes you get amazing answers from ChatGPT, sometimes you don't. A lot of times that has to do with the user themselves and the way that they're prompting. And as we know, companies are not investing enough in training and continuous training, as a matter of fact. And so results across the organization start to become very inconsistent. And the third big problem that I see across organizations is, as I'm saying there, AI said so excuses, right? So when things go wrong, individuals are deflecting their responsibility by blaming the AI tool rather than owning their decisions and outputs, right? So upfront, they're hiding the fact that they're using AI at all, but when things go wrong in the back end, then it's the AI's fault all of a sudden, right? That the AI that they were not even using supposedly in the first place. So it is really creating that, again, vicious cycle within companies, right? And that is why governance is such an important topic for companies to address.
It's funny, when I first started getting into AI a couple of years ago and started thinking about it and using it, and you would think, I am the smartest person in the world. AI system said, this is incredible, the best thing ever. You're right. All these things you start to quickly learn of, like, you can't trust, right? You have to make sure you validate and verify, cross-reference, whatever. But I myself have been burned on that one. I sent something out thinking, okay, it's good. And I'm like, but I can't blame the AI because it said so, right? I have to take accountability for that on my own.
Yeah, 100%, right? And so that is the inconsistency that we're seeing across, and the lack of accountability that we're seeing across organizations. But the good news about that is that if we change our mindset about it a little bit and we look at it from a different perspective, AI is not actually introducing any new risk, right? This is one of the biggest fears for managers, for IT departments especially. We see this a lot. AI is not really introducing new risks. Those risks already existed. AI is a new technology that, just like any other technology that has come along before, needs to be addressed properly. But what AI and the AI implementation is really doing is revealing unclear responsibility that already existed in your process, right? So usually the confusion isn't about AI, or usually the confusion around AI isn't about technology. It's about the accountability structures that were never clear in the first place. And AI is really making those gaps visible. So how do we begin to address that? And we address that by setting clear governance rules, right? Accountability being the key word here. Who owns AI-assisted work being the central question here today. This is really the foundation that everything else builds on. Getting this right when you're thinking about your AI governance for your company and the policies that you're going to set makes the rest much more straightforward. This is really a core principle that is simple but non-negotiable, right? Employees and anyone using AI should be clear that the final responsibility for reviews rests with them. And yep, as I just mentioned, right, that is the fundamental rule. If you sign it, if you send it or submit it, you own it, period. No exceptions, no excuses. And this applies whether you wrote every single word yourself in the old-fashioned way, whether you used AI assistance, so working with AI, or whether you delegated it entirely. The person who delivers the work is accountable for its content, accuracy, and implications. And that's great, right? And it seems like such a simple rule, but this rule is worth nothing if your employees don't actually understand it and realize that that's the case. And that is really the key. It's not just about having the policies, it's about making them clear and accessible to employees so that they know what the rules of the game are. So 4 clear principles that we can talk about when it comes to setting up your AI governance and thinking about it. Number 1, as we just mentioned, the human owns the outcome, right? So you're responsible for everything in the final deliverable, regardless of its origin. Number 2 is looking at AI as a tool, right? We've had many tools before that have come, technologies that have changed the way that we work. From the spell check to a calculator, to bigger things, right? Like the internet itself or smartphones, as we mentioned. We've had many different tools across our human history so far that have assisted us, but they have never decided or owned responsibility for those decisions, right? You don't blame the calculator when you enter the wrong equation. And this is the same with AI, right? AI is assisting you. It is helping you do faster research and become more efficient, but it is nothing but a tool. And because it is nothing but a tool, it doesn't dilute responsibility. Using AI assistant doesn't reduce your accountability. You still own not just the quality, but also the accuracy of the work. And managers in organizations and company leaders overall, they set the rules, right? They set the stage, they set the example, they set the guardrails and standards, not in a way that is micromanaging every interaction that your employees are having with AI. That's obviously not possible. But having clear rules, as I mentioned, making sure that your employees know what those rules are, what tools are actually approved, and how to use them, will make everything more clear as a way to move forward with governance. And some real scenarios, right? So what are we talking about here when we're talking about what is happening around companies? So a very clear example that I see all the time is AI written emails, right? So sales reps or marketing reps using AI to draft a proposal to a prospective client, but not fully checking what's in there for accuracy. So who owns that in that example is the sales rep, right? The person that hits send, they should have verified accuracy, tone, pricing, branding, commitments, all of it. Not a single word should be sent out if it hasn't been read and reviewed by the human user, right? Same thing with AI assistant hiring summaries, or even AI roles role descriptions that are being written and posted for job posts. So a recruiter using AI to summarize candidate interviews for their hiring manager, or maybe even before that, using AI to write the job post in the first place. And who owns the responsibility in that case is 100%, again, that recruiter, right? Submitting the summary, they have to ensure that it's fair, accurate, and complete, because they were actually the human that was there, supposedly, right, during the interview process. And so they are responsible for that work. And similarly, I'm sure you've seen a trend here by now, AI-generated reports, right, that may contain errors. So analysts using AI to create financial reports that may contain incorrect calculations. Again, the analyst owns the error, right? AI made a mistake is not a valid excuse. That analyst never would have said, the calculator made a mistake or the Excel sheet made a mistake, right, in previous iterations of technology. And that continues to be the case here. You wrote it, you hit send, you submitted it, you own it, period. Now back to you.
All right. Thanks, Thiago. So great foundation. We all have to understand what we're starting with. And then from there, like, okay, how do we action it? How do we put this into action? How can you apply this in your work day to day? Whether you work for yourself, whether you work for a small company, whether you work for a large company. Hopefully your large companies have some of these things figured out. If they don't, it's a good opportunity for you to actually raise your hand and maybe ask more about it. But it's important. You can't sit there and scrutinize every single thing that AI does, but there are some portions of the work that you really, really need to have your full attention on to make sure, again, we're not making incorrect decisions or incorrect communications or having biases or whatever it might be. So the key for all of you is to figure out, what should I focus on? What things don't really need all my attention? These categories will always, these are sometimes, and these are probably never, because there's no harm, no foul, maybe more internal. So we'll get more into that here in just a second. Think about it as a risk-based framework. The higher the risk, the more review you're going to do as a human, right? You got a really big proposal you're going to send out to a client you really love to get. It's a big one, and you want to have a pair of eyes on. You want to make sure, hey, Thiago, can you take a look at this? You're like, oh, dude, you missed this part here. Hey, great, thank you. I would have charged them half of what I should have charged them, whatever it might be. Same thing applies here with AI. If you have anything that's going out to anything external, Anything that's legal, financial, regulatory, those are really, really key. Anything to do relating to hiring and employment. I've spent many, many years in recruiting operations and talent acquisition. Can't tell you how many times I've been called upon to provide information from legal aims, but people feel like they've been biased again. So again, same principles apply here with AI. You have to understand where it's being used and the risk that comes with using it in that category. Anything is brand sensitive or PR, and anything commitments and obligations. If you're doing something that's really high risk, high value for you as a company, this is the things you really should think about. They must have review here. And again, they were there before. You just need to think about it as AI is just another person, another party that you need to participate with to ensure that you're getting all the right checks and balances. Some things, maybe not, right? If you have internal drafts or just early thoughts or meeting notes, or you're doing your own brainstorming or whatever it is, those are fine. Those are things that stay internal to you, but as long as they are not used for other things, that's where, again, you need to step into the next level up for that for review. Okay, not all reviews are created equal. So we think about this, start with the baseline of 0. These are things that really don't, and then kind of this is more expansion of the previous slide, but back to the things that really, really matter. So think about it like this. Are these things that I don't need a review on, or my internal notes, whatever it is? What about your own self-review? Are you thinking about what you do and use an AI for? And if you have a company you're working for, what are the policies against this? Are you ensuring that you're checking your own work? I'll admit, for a start, when I started getting into AI, I'm like, that's brilliant, AI. And I would go copy out and go forward with that. Wrong. Like, that was completely wrong because the content was wrong, the numbers are wrong, whatever it is. So again, you can't afford that. So lessons learned, you start thinking about site references, just like you would for anything else. That's a cool study. Show me where the data is that actually supports percent X increase over time. It's really important to understand that, especially now with the world of information that you're available at your fingertips, literally through this one of these AI models. You have to ensure it's pulling the right things and giving you the right things that work for your particular situation. Peer review. Do that all the time in the world where, hey, take a look at this, right? Again, do some spot checking for me, make sure, again, there's something really critical that's being missed. This is a big one. So how you think about that is important. Same thing around AI, right? So this is something where, again, if you think it's something to have a peer review, this is something you should think about having a pair of eyes on the work that you're doing with AI. Same thing as your manager. Like, if you ask me, you have to go through your manager for approval until you're going to send out. Again, the same thing here. You start thinking about what level of scrutiny is necessary. Your communications probably aren't, but your big proposal is going to go out to a client absolutely is. And then the really, really big one, I worked in recruiting operations for many years. How many things do we send out for offers, for offer letters? Okay, that's legal. That's potentially immigration. That's HR. That's the business unit that is it. There's so many people involved. How much we're going to pay them? How much stock we're going to give them? All those things. And if you use AI and doing something along those lines, all those parties involved, you need to get everybody's eyes on that to ensure, again, that you're having something that is valid. Everybody checks the box that you have to check for that particular thing. Otherwise, you are putting yourself at tremendous risk. So think of it as not a yes or no. It's really about the intensity of the work that you're doing, the risk that potentially is involved with that, and apply the rules accordingly.
Yeah, and I think the key here being employees understanding this as well, right? Like the risk, the things that they're submitting. And as you're saying, is that a low risk for the company, or is it a higher risk, right? Are we level 0, we level 4? And that's important to have as part of your training for the employees so that they understand those differences and the inherent risk that any content that they put out, whether it's AI generated or not, right? Anytime you put out any kind of content, there is inherent risk. So as we talked about, AI is not really introducing new risk, right? What it's introducing is a new way to think about that risk and who needs to review. And I think this like 4-step, 4 levels framework is a great way to do it. And we need to make sure that employees actually understand that as well, right?
Absolutely. And again, these are, guidelines that I always say err on the side of caution. When in doubt, have somebody take a look at it, because again, you don't want to be accountable. If you send it, you're accountable, like you mentioned. And it's really important to people understand you can't blame something else. You can't blame the data being wrong. If you approved it, you approved it at the end of the day. Okay, so if you're doing your reviews, like, what are the things that you should care about, right? If you're thinking about things and these are broken down to like client comms and analysis reports and creative content, but it's important, if AI is generating some of these things, do you trust, like, for example, that the pricing and numbers are current and accurate? Models work. They're trained on a subset of data. It's not today. It goes back some months and it's trained on that data. It uses real-time access to get, real-time information off the web. But if we're only using the training data, you're 6 months potentially out of whack with that, and that could be potentially damaging if you're looking for competitor analysis or whatever it might be. So you think about what you want to do, apply for what you're trying to offer. So again, be very mindful of the things that you're doing here. So these are a checklist of some ideas. Think about pricing, commitments, because your tone, right? Again, think about how AI writes. You can have it write in many different tones, but how do you communicate? How does your company communicate? Those things are super important. And again, promises, requiring approvals we don't have. Sounds good. Yes, we can. The reality is you haven't cleared that. Like, again, you can't make the AI copy present something that's just not feasible or actual in your work that you do. And very important around regulatory language compliance. Again, if it's there, you got to make sure it's accurate. You're not misrepresenting something potentially. For analysis and reports is the big one. How many times have people made decisions off of data and you're like, oops, the data was wrong, right? We don't actually have a problem. We actually have an abundance of issues, or we actually have 4 problems instead of 2. It's important to, again, understand your data sources. So always ask your model, if you're working with them, what are your sources? Have them cite them for you. Show me where you found this information. You can go, that's great. Or no, that's completely off kilter. I don't need that. And therefore you have to, kind of have to start over with your model. Again, calculations, looking about alternate interpretations, and then knowledge of limitations. So again, if you look at something, you got to put your name on it. So be very comfortable putting your name on it by following the checklist to ensure that you or your AI did not do anything here that you don't want to do. Same thing for creative content, right? Cool, you did it for me. You did a month's worth of content for us, but at the same time, like, what does it say? Is it going to say we're going to give you buy one, get one half off? Or is it going to say like, it's a brand voice that doesn't match what you're doing? It's important to ensure that the outcome, as is if you created it yourself, you just got some assistance in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just one thing that I want to say, we haven't mentioned yet, right? I think most people have realized it by now, is that AI makes a lot of assumptions, right? That's why so much information is incorrect. And not everybody is a prompting expert, right? And so because the way that you avoid those assumptions is with really good prompts and actually including all the information in your prompt, right? But as we know, most people are not doing that. They're getting very vague prompts. And so that is why we end up getting these AI generated results with numbers that may be incorrect, policies that may be incorrect, promises that may be incorrect, right? And so the problem stems from the fact that people don't have the proper training to begin with. As we said, it's a never-ending cycle here that just perpetuates itself. So I think it's important to point that out to people, that don't assume that everything is correct, because AI assumed a lot of things when it gave you those answers, probably. And so that, therefore, the importance to actually check the content.
So true. I mean, even I, as long as I've been in this business, just this morning I was having a conversation with Claude, which is my personal favorite choice. And I said, did you do this? And it said, yep. And I said, okay, great. And then a couple of messages later, I gave it a backdoor answer, to check it. And I'm like, hey, what's up? Oh, you're right. And you're right is my least favorite word, or 2 words in the vocabulary, because you're right. Basically, the system's saying, I messed up. I fabricated those numbers, whatever it is. So again, even if you're skilled in this, you still have to spend time saying, okay, let's prove it. Show me the data that validates this, or whatever it is. Because it is important to understand, just again, as you rely upon a teammate for information, just to rely upon an external source for data, whatever it might be, you have to ensure that you know what it is there that you're getting. It's quality, and you're going to put your name on it. And I think you touched on this earlier, Thiago. There is a lot of distrust around AI, and it's how you view it. Really, it can be something that people look at as going to take all of our jobs, or you could say, wow, it's going to take care of the things I really don't like to do, the mundane tasks, repetitive things, and that's actually going to free me up to do other cool things I never get a chance to do on my my check of things I'd like to do. Right. So think of it like this: it's human in the loop is really just helping to validate the hard work that the AI system is doing for you. So if you think of it in that way, it's a tool, like you said. It's a calculator. It's just another mechanism that helps you be better at your job, accurate at your job. We all want to do well, right? We want to deliver good quality results. We don't want something that would be not put our name on. It'd be like somebody writing your paper, for when you're in school, right? It's important to understand, like, it's got to come from you. But again, you have to validate your source so you feel comfortable, putting your name on it. Okay. Simple mental model to kind of think about this. If you think about before AI, what questions would you ask yourself? And you would say, hey, should I run this by a peer? No? Should I run by a manager? Probably. Okay. And same thing applies today. If it's big, it's important. With AI, it still requires the same approval. It's nothing changes really at the end of the day. It's just another mechanism. So if you're using it and you're like, oh gosh, this is a big one or whatever it might be, or it's important or it's legal or whatever it is, yeah, talk to the people that need to be talked to. Talk to your manager, talk to your peer. If you have to reach out to legal, dig some advice, whatever it is, just as you would to do today. AI, in my opinion, is just another system and is another person, digital person you're going to be working with. And you want to trust that person, but at the same time, sometimes they don't always give you the right things or, whatever it is. So same thing. Don't think of it anything differently. Like you said at the beginning, it doesn't introduce new risks. It's just the same thing. It's just how we think about it differently, but apply the same rules. And so now, if it needed review before AI, it's going to need review now. It's going to need review in the future. So think about that, and it simplifies things to a point where you don't have to compartmentalize it into its own thing. It's just same rules apply. It's just now we've got another different layer on here with AI systems.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to build that muscle, right, with training. So one of the things, for example, as you know, I have my AI training bootcamp, and the attendees of my bootcamp are building their own AI use cases, right? So that takes some planning. There's a whole session just about planning. And in that planning session, one of the things that we specifically talk about when I have them map out what they're going to build is what are the layers of approval and what are the layers of review, So that's when we're building something, I'm inherently adding that from the very beginning, right? As you build this, who is it that needs to approve your usage of it? Is it your manager? Is it the IT department, etc., right? And then as you deploy content from it, again, what is your personal level of review? And then beyond that, who needs to review and approve it, right? Is it your manager? Is it the legal department? Again, is it IT? Is it maybe your marketing agency partner that usually does the copywriting for you? That just needs to be ingrained in people's minds from the beginning as this new technology continues to be implemented.
Totally. And again, you hit it on the head about AI literacy and training. The knowledge is so powerful because you can figure out how to do it and do it right. You're going to be far beyond other people, and you're going to save yourself from risk, and you're probably going to capitalize on a lot of opportunities. In my career, I've done a lot of org design, and you think about how you design organization and workflows to exist, and the same thing. Back in the old day, we used RACI, right? Responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It's the same thing here. How do you think about who needs to look at this? Who should be consulted? Hey, it's an FYI for you, or like at the end of the day, if you're the R, right? You're responsible for this. And so same rules apply here as well. I think that's a really helpful mindset that you gave them. And again, it can be scary, but it's really not. It's just another way to think about it. If you take it back to what you do today, the same things apply and make things. I think this makes it a little bit easier for people to digest.
I've never heard of RACI. That was my favorite.
RACI? Yeah, that's old school. Yeah, RACI was an old school way. It's still around, but I loved it because it was like very crystal clear of like this thing and who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and then who's informed. And that way, people are very clear on the roles and responsibilities as well. Like you can't have two people that are responsible, right? Or you can have multiple informed. So yeah, it's a good one to kind of think about. And the same thing here with AI, like who should take a look at this? Who should be an FYI only? Who at the end of the day is responsible? That's going to be you, right?
I love a good acronym.
Always, we need more. This is just an example of what it could look like with multiple party AI work accountability. So, if you've got someone that drafts it, someone that reviews and edit it, somebody else, adds the pricing, and then someone sends the client, pop quiz, give the answer, but who owns it, right? Like at the end of the day, everybody owns their contribution, right? But who is accountable at the end of the day is who is the final approver. That person, then, like you said earlier with an example, if you then send it, it's basically on you. If you do your work to validate the building blocks to get to where you are, again, that's going to be on you. So think about it like that. Each person owns the part, just like they would in today's world. But at the end of the day, you're accountable at the end to make sure that you know exactly what it is that's going out the door. And otherwise, because again, your name's going to be on it.
Point out also, as you mentioned, those 4 levels that you mentioned before. I love that concept. In your previous slide there, you can be all four of those people, right? It's not every process that's going to have multiple parties involved. So for some processes, you can be the draft owner, the editor, the final approver, and the sender, right? It doesn't change what the process says. You still have to review it, whether there's other parties involved or it's just yourself. So
absolutely. And it's a great way to think about it. Like, again, just apply what you do today. How would you do it? And again, who's accountable? It's you, right? So again, I think there's hopefully some really good takeaways for people that watch this, because it's simpler when you think about it. But again, the AI kind of just puts this like mystical cloud over it as like it's AI. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's really core things that we should continue to think about doing in good practices that help you keep yourself at risk and ensure that you're doing the right things and connecting with your clients and, of course, making money. But I think that's there's a lot of demystification that needs to happen with AI. And I think this is a really great start. Give people some clear guidance and some recommendations of like how you should think about it and ways to then apply it to your own work that they do today. Okay, so again, what happens is if your company, you're a larger company, or there's four of you, and you all use AI in your own way, right? You use it with your own systems. One's got Claude, ChatGPT, the other one's got Gemini, whatever's, or again, you could use all the same platform, and you still get a different answer. But the problem is, if you start having multiple people involved and you've got information that they're using, who's going through and looking to make sure that everything is actually consistent? So again, pricing mentioned by marketing and by sales and by your operations team or your customer success team is all going to be accurate and saying, well, you have a central place that you go to, right? So you think about AI in the same way. If you think about governance, if you have a shared context library, this basically says, these are the messages that we must use and that we want our AI tools to reference. So if you think about using it as a knowledge base of information. So the AI system is going to reference that, and every system, no matter what it is, will always reference the same information. Otherwise, you're going to get random things and you get inconsistent message. So how weird would it be to get a message sent out to a customer and parts of it don't add up? They don't match each other. And the client is like, what's going on here? So when thinking about cross-function review triggers, like when should it actually happen? When should each party actually look at this? And again, to your point earlier, if this is you, like again, making sure that you're using the same AI in the same way in the same places and what you're creating. Because again, I've fallen victim to that. Got a good answer here, got a next question, got something, and I'm realizing, oh, wait a minute, I actually don't have the same, it doesn't actually jive with each other and actually is inconsistent. And that's, again, going to be on me. If you do things like having this review process, you really should also look for contradictions. So when does it happen? Like, have a documentation of this. How many times does it happen? Where is it always the problem? Help you identify if it's working for you or if there are particular areas that needed some additional attention. Because again, you want to find consistency in your team and in your organization to ensure that you're having the same message that goes out. Things like positioning, brand positioning, thinking about what we're claiming, what we can do for their products, and pricing, very important. It has to all be in sync, and then it goes out to the customer. And if you think about same materials, if you get to a place, if you have something custom, like if a custom GPT, or you do something offline within like your own small language model, like are you trained on the same data, right? If you have access to the same information, you're trained on the same data, the answer the AI is going to give you then is going to be, again, consistent. You're searching outward for things. You've got to think about how you tie it back to what matters to you and the consistencies across you, if that's just you or it's your team or your company.
Yeah, I think especially regarding your first point there, regarding a shared context library, that is such a big problem that I'm seeing across every organization. And I think especially, I hate to say it, but I think especially organizations that are using Copilot. So I'm sorry if anybody from Microsoft ends up watching this. But the problem that I'm seeing across organizations is that things are just not set up correctly, and there's not that shared source of truth, right? And Copilot is reaching into documents from 5, 10, 15 years ago and quoting things that are completely accurate by this point, sometimes reaching and finding documents that a specific employee is not even supposed to have access to, and their managers, OneDrive or something like that. And lack of the shared context library is a problem I'm seeing across organizations, and not all of them have realized yet that it's a problem and have not figured out how to solve it, right? And again, another instance where training is really important, right? If you as a company haven't quite figured this out yet, your employees at least should know how to properly work around that for the time being.
Totally. And again, we're going to promote the training piece of this, but again, literacy and training is so important. Things like, if you have prompts, you should have a prompt library. You should have an understanding like when it was used, when it was last checked. How often do you evaluate it? How often do you ensure that you're not going off drift? Because you got an answer today, promise you 3 months from now, you won't get the same answer, the exact same prompt, because things shift. The models are having access to everything possible in the world. It's going to things are going to slightly deviate. So same thing here, having this documentation, having clear understanding, especially if it's just you. Cool, you can talk to yourself, but have somewhere documented in case you bring on other people. But again, as a team or as an organization, wow, you really need to think about consistency here. And what does it really mean? How do you cross-check it? How do you audit it? How do you ensure, again, you're not putting yourself at risk? And you don't want someone going out there that's like, hey, great, it's $5 and you would normally charge $50,000. Like, you're going to eat that $45,000, in expense, right? Really important. And these are all things that people kind of do in today's world, but again, AI is just another lens to this. So how you start thinking about shaping your organization and your operations with thinking about AI in this capacity. And it's not simple, but it is, in the sense of like, there's still the good things you want to do. Of course, you want consistency across what you send out. You want consistency across your own proposals, right? To ensure you're talking the same language, whatever it might be. So keeping that in mind, it may seem daunting, but at the end of the day, you're doing a lot of these great things already. Let's just think about how we can make it sure with the use of AI, it's still appropriate. We've got it documented so we don't put ourselves at more risk, which we'll talk about in just a second here. Okay. The AI output looks great, but what happens if it's wrong? And it's happened to all of us, right? You got something, this is brilliant, this is great, I'm so excited for this, I cross-reference it, and then you present it, and you're like, oh, that's not right. And so you touched on this. It wants to please you. It wants to make you happy. It wants to tell you you're brilliant and you get the most brilliant ideas in the world. So it's going to fabricate things, and that's frustrating. Like, where did you get that stat? And it's like, you're right, you caught me. I made it up. Well, don't make that up in the future. But yet it's still going to do that. Again, the cross-reference thing is important, but it will. It wants to it can create full-on like study, examples that really don't exist. You have to think about it, and it will do that. So how do you insulate yourself from risk for this? It can come up with logical structure and flawed reasoning. So it's great, but then it can come up with some crazy conclusion with the data, and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't act right. So you have to look at the output, the end output, the parts and pieces it says it's using to build this together, and be like, does 1 + 1 = 1 = 3, or does it equal 4? And if it doesn't, this is where, again, you have to come in and help train your model, to help coach your model and yourself to ask better questions or prompt a different way and get it to what you want to do. Cool, great copy. This is great, but it has cultural contextual issues. That happens all the time. It's like, whoa, you don't want to put that in there. That does not translate into what I'm trying to say here. So again, you must look at this, and even if it does look right at a spot level, you got to deep dive on it. You got to look at every single piece of what is being presented to you and put yourself objectively at it and say, does this make sense? Does it potentially put myself at risk? Is there cultural issues or context? Wait a minute, does that make sense? So these are all important things you would do if somebody gave you something to reevaluate. Thiago gives it to me, and I'm like, okay, like I would find maybe something in it, but then I get back to them and say, hey, what about this? Whatever it is. Same thing with AI. You got to think about, you got to review it, got to get feedback, and then you can go from there. Outdated, you touched on that. Oh my gosh. Cool, here's this stat. It's from 2021. Not relevant right now, what's going on. So again, look at your sources, look at the data, making sure, again, it's actually pertinent what you care about and actually like relevant. If it's something from 15 years ago, nobody's going to care. And you also seen this?
That's been announced sometimes. I've seen that happen also in companies where, a marketing manager or something, has Copilot or whatever, right? Creates some content, and it pulls into like their manager's files or whatever, the plans for 2026, right? And that manager is like putting it out there like, oh, this is what's coming out, soon, and it hasn't been announced yet. And so it's like, it's both, right? It can be outdated information, but it can also be information that is not ready to be out in the world yet.
100%, that Copilot. And this is my favorite, like, it's overconfident. are you certain? Yes, I'm certain. And it gives, I'm just thinking, it's just, it sounds so solid, right? And it feels like the system is telling you, yes, 100% believe in it, but okay, it doesn't always. Sometimes it says this is a fact. And you're like, what's the source? And again, sometimes you're just going to get something like I made it up or whatever it is. And again, I ask all the time, what's your confidence level on this and why? Explain to me why you're at 100% confidence. Why are you only at 50%? I call it out and I'll say things like, I don't believe you. Why are you at 75% for this? I'm only at 30%. Explain your logic. You're right. And you just keep peeling down to it again, because again, you're accountable. At the end of the day, you're responsible for what this output is. You need to be going through this to fine tooth comb. Again, the lesson here, you can't just do spot checking. You can't just sort of, you got to dive into this content and make sure again that it's right.
Yeah, I love what it says there. AI errors hiding sophistication. That is the most succinct way that I've seen it
right?
Because it is like the outputs that we get from AI, it looks so convincing, right? So sophisticated. Like actually it's presented in such a confident way. Like here's the answer here's the definitive answer to your question, right? So it does look very sophisticated, and at a surface level, it can look, great until you, as you mentioned, right? You start peeling the onions and you see like, that's not quite right as I thought. So I'm gonna steal that quote.
You got it. And I think it's key there too, right? If you don't validate and you take that as a building block of information, like, great, now build me a marketing plan. Well, your marketing plan's screwed up. Your operational data is screwed up because you didn't validate. So again, you really have to go through the process. It looks slick, but think about it. In, seconds, this system just put together all this crazy stuff. You gotta there's gotta be some accuracy issues. There gotta be some concern issues. You can't just take a carte blanche, right? So I always say, think about it like, believe but don't trust, right? And think about like that of like, I believe you, but I don't trust you yet. And how am I going to go through and I'm going to validate, or make system validate it for you? I use it all the time. Like, show me your proof. Argue the other side or whatever it is. Like, it's important for you to use the tool upon itself to get more of the answers that you need. And that's a really key thing about that. I mean, don't put it all on yourself, because you may not know, but make the system to do the work that it needs to do, tell you why it is, or, again, reverse it or whatever it is. I found that to be very, very helpful to get, oh, wait, actually, that isn't right. Okay, great. Now we use that as our baseline.
Totally.
Okay, and won't go through this in detail, but basically, you're all in different industries. What are the very unique risks that might happen here? I spent many years in recruiting operations, and I spent many years doing events. And those things both have legal, concerns around them. I can't tell how many times I've been brought in for legal, counsel on a hiring decision because someone claims bias. So if you think about your own industry, what are the unique, situations you have to be aware of? And again, in hospitality and events, again, what you promise in terms of like your service agreements, and like you're promising in terms of like a banquet event order, whatever it is, your guest experience, you have to make sure again that everything is accurate there. Financials, huge, the thing there. I don't want to touch that one myself because that's scary, because again, you're talking about money, right? So take a look at this if you're interested. And again, your own industry is going to have some. And here's a great way to do it too. Ask your model. I always like, hey, what would you tell me my risks are that I focus on these particular areas, like event management, hospitality, and talent acquisition? It comes with the things, and you can argue whatever it is, but like, think about it, prepare yourself, because those risks are real, not just the overall ones, but ones that are unique to you. Don't be blindsided by them. They are in a sense, but like, ask your system to help you identify them, and then take a step further. I say, great. Help me safeguard against this. What should I need to do differently now in terms of my operations? What things should I check? What things you can help me with? So again, you're using the system to do the work for you. So again, there are just risks that inherently exist across the board. Make sure you're focusing on what's important to you. And if you go outside your domain, that's a really good example. Chuck and I have actually partnered together on several different things. And I'm like, that's not my domain at all. And so I'm like, hey, buddy, do you have suggestions here to think about this? And it's important. Again, here I am asking a peer. Here I am asking a system. Again, it's the same thing. I'm taking their input into this and trust him, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, maybe I'll do a cross check here to make sure. But that's the whole point, is if you're doing so, what are the risks that you're getting yourself into? My advice, if you're exploring into a new area, just figure out what it is first. You may not want to touch that one, right? It just may not make sense for you to do given the risks that are involved. Okay, final chapter here for us is cool. We got the foundation. We know what we're thinking about. We know what we're talking about. When we're thinking about how we think about our processes and how AI should be involved. What should we do? Who's accountable, etc. And then the final piece, of course, is documentation. It's important to understand what do you need to document and why. Is it everything you do? Is it every single thing? Whatever it is, we'll get more in detail here. But it's important. Like, it's good practice to do good things. It's also a lot of overhead at the end of the day. So what's important for you to think about and what's not? Okay, what do you care about? Well, you care about approvals. Hey, Bob approved this. Cool. Bob is on the line then for this because Bob's the approver on this. Things that you decided about, your decisions. These are key things. We've decided to close that, operations over here, and we're going to go do this over here, or whatever it might be. Decisions are really important to understand and have documented. But you're not trying to document your process for this particular area. You have standard operating procedures already. That's something totally different. And again, it's not to say Claude, as the example says, I use AI to do this. Only matters, again, is the decision of the human that does it, and then what did they use in that process. We'll go back in just a second here, but essentially is who approved this, right? Same thing, whose name is on the line, whether it's human in life or whether it's with AI. At the end of the day, whoever is that approved is the person, is that they are accountable for this.
Yeah, you never would have, told somebody, oh, it's the spell check, the spell check fault. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
spell check that in the expletive word in there, and I didn't see, like.
It's funny because you think about it like that, it's like, it seems so silly, right, to do that. But at the same time, again, AI is new for a lot of people, so but it is like, again, you chose to use the tool, right? You've got to think about, you got to trust it and put your name on it. So it's a learning process, back to education, for people to understand like how you should think about using it and what it really means for you at the end of the day. Like, you're accountable, right? So scale matters. If you're part of a big organization, like a big enterprise company, over like 1,000 people, you should have hopefully a division that focuses on this, that helps you with keeping things in line. You should have hopefully, AI policies and AI training and guidance and whatever it is, but also learn from experience. Again, managing recruiting operations, Expedia Group in the last, how many things you have to have sure is document, who made the decision, what was used, how was AI used in my process to look at the candidates. So again, it's thinking about audits and compliance. Those are the things that are going to happen to you if you're a bigger company. If you're smaller scale, a lot of solopreneurs, smaller companies under, let's say, under 500, you have a little more leniency, right? You don't have to be super rigid around this and have a full system that does. You can just have a simple log and like spreadsheet that captures the thing. But key thing here, which we'll talk about in a little bit later, you don't want to over-document. Over-documentation actually is a problem. It puts you up for actual risk because you said all these things and you didn't do all these things. So again, we'll get into that just a second here. So just something really basic. It's just approved by on this date. And then again, thinking about if there was AI used in that process. It's not all equal. I know we're running up on time here, so we're going to move the rest of this. We can finish out, but critical things, again, final approvals, anything compliance has to have documentation. Anything around high stake external communications, anything that's really big in your eyes, anything that's responding to issues or support or whatever it is. Again, you have legal liability to this. You can potentially have violations that are fines. Those are not fun. Next level down is things that are important. Should document. My advice is it should and must. Do them both. You're only going to save yourself headaches later on in case you don't. Again, don't over document, which we'll get to in just a second here. But at the end of the day, these are just important things for accountability. And you can then make sure you understand what was done. These are just good things. Systems might do it for you in today's world, but in case they don't have something documented here, there are exceptions to policies. Why? And again, anything that's related to a partnership or agreement with someone, a partner or a vendor. Again, the things that are important. The rest, optional. Yeah, anything internal, anything you're doing of like iterative tracking or examples, etc. Those are all things internal to you. You don't need to really worry about that. Again, it's not a high risk. And if you think about this, it maybe seems daunting, just focus on tier one, focus on the really, really critical. And then as you have time, focus on tier two, which would be important, but make sure the criticals are documented. Ran into an issue one time with a company that didn't have policy outline around something, made a decision around this. And again, the customer was threatening legal issue, against them because again, we have this policy document and somebody made a mistake because there wasn't a policy. So it's important to have those things done. And then this is back to the point I mentioned earlier, protect you or hurt you. Won't read through all this, but basically, here's some things that if you're ever caught in a discrimination lawsuit, I've been part of those, not personally, but the company I was working for. I've had clients that potentially have this, and like a client dispute, for example. Again, you got to think about it as, if you're back with the ISO 9000, way back and things like do what you say what you do and do what you say. So if you document something, then you have to actually do it, right? You can't do things outside of this. And again, you can't have approvals outside of your stated approval process. Audits as well, process compliance, those are kind of things that are important. You can read that on your own leisure, but it's important to understand what's critical and what you should have. But again, do not over document. What to keep. I have to think about retention, like you keep your taxes for 7 years, right? These are things, if there's high stakes things, 7 years, employee high records, depending where you are, you have a couple of years that you should be keeping that information. Or if you think about GDPR and other things, like you have to get rid of that purge that information. That's an important thing that you have to make sure you did it and make sure that you prove it, right? And approvals, etc. When to delete and how to delete, you can read them on your own. But essentially, just ensure that you keep the important things. You have a list here, but also you're going to things that apply to your own industry or your own market.
Yeah, that's an interesting, actually, that I think maybe we can explore it at a later session. What to get rid of and what to erase is just as important as what you keep, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, depending where you are, man, you start to get into fines if you don't complete GDPR, within a certain period of time. And again, I think there will be legislation also coming up around AI that are going to force us all to think about, okay, where does it live? How is it documented? What information? Again, so be prepared, buckle up. We're still figuring all this stuff out with AI, but it's, again, keeping up with it is going to help you ultimately in the long run.
Maybe you need
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I see that regulation coming here.
Exactly, right? Let's see here. Oops. So I know we're wrapping up here. Retention, again, if done right. Here's where, if not done right, over retention. So don't document things like violations and have things that are premature. So again, it's something that you have to make sure that you purge regularly, and the things you should never document. It's important to understand you don't need to document everything, just the key things that matter. But again, over documentation is going to get you into trouble. If you say you have something, you did it, and it's documented, like that could potentially be used against you in a lawsuit. All right, wrapping this thing up. What we didn't cover today on purpose, I'm not going to tell you what tool to use. We're not going to talk about compliance, GDPR. We did a little bit, sorry there. And SOX, etc. But ethics, that's a whole other session we can do, Thiago. Or around policy templates, etc. So we want to give you some overall guidance to think about AI governance and things to think about, and things you can apply to your own work as you leave here today. And just some key takeaways at the end here. It doesn't introduce new risk. If you sign it, you send it, you review it, it is yours. You're on the hook for that. Think about the level of risk. Apply the same level of rigor on the review, and document the decisions, not the process. It's important that those things are done so you've got a trail as necessary. And that's it.
That is all. I think that was really, really good. No, really good information. I hope that anyone watching this enjoys it. I did add our contact information here for both of us if anybody would like to continue the conversation or just wants to reach out and talk more about governance, automations, training, answer engine optimization, pretty much anything in the AI realm. Travis and I are available. And in fact, just mention this video and having seen this, and when you reach out to either of us, and we're offering a 30-minute consultation, a complimentary 30-minute consultation. So we definitely look forward to chatting, and thank you, Travis, for hanging out and doing this together. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. This is great.
Yeah, and that's all. Thank you for watching.
Bye, everybody.